Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is Dr. Linh Love. I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncture and also wear many hats studying ancient wisdom about Chinese medicine, about holistic health, about the mind, about healing the body and the mind and the spirit from a holistic perspective. And today I'm going to talk to you about how we can promote health and healing of our emotions such as grief, hopelessness, sadness, from a Chinese medicine perspective, including astroenergetics here. And I'm going to share with you 3 tools that you can use at the end of this video to help boost your lung qi, to help boost your energy for the rest of this autumn season, and to help you understand more about what's happening in the mind, body, spirit level from Chinese medicine. So let's dive in. I am a doctor of Chinese medicine. This video is going to be purely educational. So I'm going to be sharing with you what Chinese medicine, what the Chinese philosophy says in terms of autumn, what it says about the equinox, how we can understand what's going on with yin energy, which is the feminine energy, and yang energy, which is the masculine energy. So when we understand and look at the body and look at nature, we're understanding energetics from this yin and yang perspective. So let's just say we have summertime. Summertime is very much a yang time. It's the time where the sun is out the most, the longest. It's when there's a lot of activity going on, when there's a lot of events going on, when there's just more yang energy, there's more sun energy. When we hit the fall equinox, it's essentially where yin and yang start to balance out. When yang goes down and yin begins to increase. So, what this means is there's more energy towards introspection, there's more energy towards resting, regenerating, kind of coming back into your own experience and really starting to ask yourself some deep questions of what do I want to bring into the rest of my year? What intentions and seeds do I want to plant for the rest of the year? And also, can I review my systems of checks and balances in my body and in my environment? And how can that best serve me? So it's interesting enough, we actually enter into Libra season in the beginning of equinox. This is I feel like it's not a coincidence because Libra season and Libra, the energy of Libra, is very much about the system of checks and balances. It's harmony. It's learning, finding justice in between yin and yang, finding the balance and the harmony and the unity of yin and yang. And so during this equinox time, we just actually had the equinox on the 22nd of 2024. And this week of the equinox is a really powerful week to do any cultivation practices, is to reflect and do introspective practices for the rest of this year and do a lot of clearing work, energy clearing work in your house, in your space, in your relationships, in your work, just in your schedule in general. Doing that is really powerful for the rest of this year. So, let's dive in and talk about what Chinese medicine and Chinese philosophy says more about yin and yang, the balancing of those energies, and more about autumn and how that applies to the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of our body. So let's start with understanding the physical. From a Chinese medicine perspective, we would understand that the metal element, which is essentially connected to the autumn season, is very much connected to our lungs and our large intestine. So we have 2 organs that are connected to the metal element or the autumn season, which is our lungs and our large intestine. If you understand and think about just the functioning, the basic functioning of the lungs, it's essentially bringing in air, it's bringing inspiration, and it's expiring, it's exhaling out the old. So during this time of autumn season, it's very much we're mimicking the same basic functions of our body. We're mimicking that function of the lung that brings in new energy and releases out energy that does not belong. So, right now is really powerful for clearing practices, releasing rituals, all sorts of things that can help us just move energy through the body in our environment, in the collective, that can be really helpful. And then we look at the other organ that's connected to the metal element, which is the large intestine. And the large intestine is going to be, again, about intaking nutrients, intaking and absorbing food to bring in more vitamins and minerals into the body and then it's releasing, it's eliminating anything that does not belong in the body anymore, anything that is not needed. So during this time, it is a really, really, really great time to really do some clearing work of the body. Like if you experience any issues um with your bowel movements or with your lungs, and it's difficult for you to breathe in new air, and it's, you've had history of asthma or some of these things that affect the respiratory system. And also during this time, with the transition of the seasons, it's a big time for people getting sick and getting common colds and the flu. So during this time, it's really important to up your practices with strengthening your immune system, clearing out your detox pathways. So that way, toxins and things that don't need to be in your body can clear out. So you can do that with doing practices that support your immune system and clearing out any toxins as well. So let's talk about the mental, emotional part of the metal element, which is so important because in Chinese medicine, we really believe that a big cause of illness and imbalance in the body are emotions and the mental aspect of the lungs as well. So we believe that from the lungs, the energy of the lungs, the spirit of grief, the energy of sadness, the energy of gratitude and inspiration come from this place. And we believe that each organ has its own intelligence. And so from the lung itself, it has the spirit called Po. And Po is going to be really, really really interesting when we think about bodily sensations and our ability to just feel what our body is experiencing when things are coming in, when we're eating certain foods, when we're experiencing life. The spirit of the Po of our lungs is essentially going to receive that energy and interpret it for us to understand. So, also with the spirit of the Po, it's going to be responsible for experiencing grief and sadness, and also experiencing joy and gratitude and a lot of clarity. So, what's important is that when we have energy coming into our life, or experiences or difficulties or loss, that energy can happen and show up in our life and lives and cause shifts in our emotions, right? It can shift our spirit, which then can cause emotions. And what can happen is that essentially energy can get blocked or stagnant in these areas. And so when energy gets stagnant in these areas, when energy gets stuck in our lungs or in our large intestines, it causes blockages. So you can imagine that if you have a blockage in your lungs, you're going to have difficulty breathing, asthma type symptoms, maybe your immune system kind of gets bogged down and it's easy for you to get sick. Maybe you're experiencing allergies, things of this sort that blocks the lungs, because our lungs is also connected to how we breathe, right? Our nasal cavity, our sinuses, and it's also very much connected to the head as well. And then when we think about our large intestines being blocked, we have maybe blockages in going to the bathroom properly, or just feeling like there's a lack of circulation happening in our bowel movements and in our bowels in general. So we don't want energy to get blocked in these areas. It can cause us a lot of distress. It can cause a lot of imbalance and discomfort in our lives. And so what can we do from a Chinese medicine perspective with that experience? What we can do is we can move qi and we can move energy through our system. We can do it with exercise. We can do it with herbs, with acupuncture, with qigong practices, with essentially, we can even do it with the power of our mind. And I'm going to talk more about that later. But let's finish this off with talking about the spirit of the lungs, because the spirit of the lungs is very, very important here. And it's not talked about in modern medicine today. But in Chinese medicine, we honor the spirit of each organ, because each organ of our body has a spirit that is very much connected to its spiritual capacity, but its mental, emotional capacity as well. And so we have the spirit of the Po, which I had talked about earlier. It's connected to the bodily sensations. It's our interface between the bodily sensations that we experience from the external world. And what's interesting too about the metal element is the metal element has the Chinese character earth within it. So it's almost like we are experiencing through the earth body, through our own bodies, and connecting to sensations, connecting to the nature and the environment through our bodies. And that is somehow interfacing with the spirit of our lungs, the Po. And the Po is telling us and giving us more direction of what's happening. How do we then decide what to do with that sensation? It's really this spirit that's guiding our experience all the time. And it's interesting also because when we go to sleep, they say the spirit of our liver, the Hun, is interacting with the spirit of Po, even though the spirit of Po, we are unconscious, we're sleeping, right? But the spirit of Po is always awake, it's always alive, and we can interact. It says that ancient literature says that the Hun, the spirit of the liver, interacts with the spirit of the Po, and they begin to, you go on these journeys of dreams, and maybe you're going into all sorts of crazy dreams, but essentially the spirit of Po is receiving what's happening in those dreams. It doesn't know the difference between reality and what's actually happening in your dreams. So we receive the same sensations, bodily sensations, as if we were going through that thing in real life, but we're dreaming. So, really interesting stuff. Let's talk more about the astroenergetics here, just really quickly. So, again, when we start the fall with the equinox, it's the beginning of Libra season. Libra season is the energy and the sign of equality. It's the energy of the sign of harmony and justice and balance. It's symbolized by the scales. And this is really interesting because it's sort of our checks and systems way of looking at ourselves, looking at the environment, looking at our relationships and saying what needs to be checked, what needs to be reflected on, how can we introspect. And what's really interesting as well, on the equinox, I started really getting interested in Buddhism. Again, I grew up Buddhist, so I'm very familiar with Buddhism and studied a lot of Buddhism throughout my life. But I started feeling this call to like study Buddhist psychology, and that day, I did a meditation on bodhicitta, which is essentially the equanimity of the mind, being able to see nature and life as it is, as it's happening, and having this presence and awareness where you're able to just experience life as it is. And what's interesting is that when we are able to have yin and yang in balance, when our yin is in balance, when our body is in touch with its bodily sensations, when our mind, our yang, is able to connect with our bodily sensations, but in a way that we can be present with it, and non-judgmental and objective to our experience of our bodily sensations and what our mind is experiencing as well. When we can just step back and just allow those things to happen, that's when a lot of magic happens, because we can essentially not identify with the bodily sensations or with the mind, but we can say, I am having this experience, but I am not of that experience. And I think that is so powerful, and it reminds me a lot of the Libra energy, because we're cultivating this energy of neutrality, of this impartiality, of being able to see something and say, okay, can I see all facets of this situation? Can I see how it's affecting these people over here and this person over here, and also me receiving this information, and then also seeing the truth of the situation? So, Libra season is so much about truth, it's so much about justice, and it's also the energy of, in medical astrology, it's connected to our kidneys. So, if you think about the kidneys, from a Chinese medicine perspective, it's going to be very much connected to our essence, our ancestral chi, our vitality. And so when we are pulled in one direction too far or another direction too far, if we're overworking ourselves and we're not finding that equanimity for ourselves, that's when we can kind of go off a little bit, and our energy, our vitality can get really taxed, and we can become really overworked and overstressed, and our kidneys are really prone to that fatigue and that overwork and that burnout. So during this time, we sort of want to come back and reflect in our lives, what's working, what's not, how can I really think about what is serving me, what is not, and then Can I do some release rituals? Can I move in my life that is supportive for me for the rest of this year and into next? So let's dive into the 3 tools that you can use to help move energy that's stuck in the body to promote health of the lungs and the large intestines and to be in harmony with the autumn energetics. My first thing I've been talking about throughout this entire video is doing release rituals. So, what this could look like is writing down maybe thoughts or negative beliefs that you have about yourselves, or even something you want to release in your life, and just offer that back to spirit in your meditations, in your intentions for this season. Even what you can do is use fire, or you can use the element of earth and kind of take a piece of paper and bury it in the soil. You can do something like that. In Chinese medicine, we understand that when you give energy to the earth, when you honor and celebrate earth, that actually promotes more health in your lungs and your metal element. And so you can use that sort of dynamic of supporting the earth energy to give more energy to the metal element, to the lungs. So that is one of them. Do release rituals. You can also do this with other elements, right? With water as well, with the wind, because metal element is very much connected to the wind, to the air. And you can just start to feel and just start to notice your connection with the wind and allow the wind, the breeze one day to just take what you are willing to release and allow it to move with you. You can do it by blowing out an intention. You can do it even just with your intention alone, but that can be really powerful. And then the second thing I had already talked about, I tapped into this just very quickly, is the earth element. Diving into the earth element is so important. So when you dive into the earth element, it could look like physically really focusing on your nutrition, focusing on eating things that are supportive for your earth element, probiotics, prebiotics, eating root grounding vegetables. If you want to eat things that are very aligned with the metal element, then you want to eat things like honey, pears, helping with like detoxing through the body, through the skin as well is really important, like exercising, doing dry brushing like that, because the elemental connection that we have with the skin is very much connected to our lungs. So our lungs, it's so important. They actually say in Chinese medicine that the lungs and the skin are so connected that the skin is actually the third lung. So you can actually work with the lungs indirectly by working with the skin. And then you want to also move energy through the body by doing some connection to your emotions. So having some connection to your emotions, sadness or grief, feeling where sadness or grief lives in your body and really tapping into those places. And even with your presence alone, it can help move that energy out. Or even working with a somatic practitioner is really powerful. I also have a very, very powerful chi meditation. It's a self hypnosis audio track that is self guided and pre recorded for you by me, and I have it available on my website. You can go to drlinlove.com. It's going to be down in the show notes as well, and you can use that. You can do that. That is only $8, and you can have it for a lifetime. Or I have the 5-element Hypno Chi Path, which is essentially such a great deal because it's all 5 elements, all 5 emotions, and it's all for $12 only a month. So it is such a great offer. So look for that on my website. If you want more information, please do reach out. And my third thing is really find a way that you can dive into a gratitude practice. So this can be by bringing in new inspiration. This can be by bringing in new inspiration, by like learning from different people, reading new books, bringing in new things, bringing in new plant in your house, and just feeling this new inspiration of energy of new air in the space, and developing a gratitude practice. So in your journal, writing down the one thing that you're grateful for from the day. Or one thing that I love doing is right before I go to sleep, I like to review in my mind's eye what the things I was grateful for in that day. And it's just been like such a wonderful practice. I actually have been doing that since I was a child. Like, I kid you not, it's been really, really powerful practice for me. And just going through your day and just really thinking about like what have been the things that just inspire me or bring me joy and or I just feel very grateful for in my life. Like, it can be just the smallest things, like hugging your dog, going on a walk, like talking to a friend. Something as simple as that can be really, really, really powerful. So, I want to thank you for joining me on this video. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and share it with a friend if they are very tuned in with the energetics of astrology, of Chinese medicine. I am so, so, so honored to share this information with you. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.